The people of planet Earth are in the midst of a crisis. As Paul Gilding states, the Earth is full of us, full of our stuff, full of our waste, and full of our demands. The demands of an exponentially growing global population are struggling to be met while the rate at which we consume continues to increase at an accelerated rate. Subsequently, so is the rate at which we are producing waste. Our institutions operate under the belief that we are able to extract an infinite amount of resources from our infinitely large Earth. With no indication of slowing down, all evidence suggests that we are currently living beyond our means. And this evidence is everywhere. Studies from a UN report estimates that in order to sustain humanity at our present state, we would require 1.5 Earths to accommodate for the required resources and the waste produced. The report goes on to predict that by the year 2030, we will require 2 planets to accommodate the demands of humanity based on the current rate of consumption, as it is. Such evidence is also present when observing ecological footprints. Now, an ecological footprint is the area in hectares that accommodates the resources required and the waste produced by one person. The Living Planet Report 2012 stated that Earth's biocapacity is approximately 12 billion global hectares, which is the equivalent of 1.8 global hectares per person. Now, the human ecological footprint was reported to be 18.2 billion in 2010, which is an equivalent of 2.7 global hectares per person. This means the rate at which we are consuming resources is 1.5 times faster than the ability of Earth's ability to regenerate them. Most of the damage can be blamed on carbon dioxide emissions, where such emissions contribute to over 50% of the waste that impacts our global ecological footprint. At the rate at which we are growing, the Earth's forests and oceans require a year and a half to absorb the carbon dioxide emissions that are generated in 1 year. All of this means that we are not only affecting the environment, but also damaging our economy because we are creating an ecological debt in terms of food shortages and biodiversity loss and diminishing forests. There are some who argue that the human population growth is in fact decreasing, that the widespread accessibility of education and healthcare will lead to the population stabilizing within a generation. For example, ideas such as birthing many children is becoming a thing of the past as babies are now expected to grow to an old age. Moreover, there are some that argue that the greater concern is overconsumption rather than overpopulation. The reasoning behind this is that the richest people in the world account for 7% of the population, yet over 50% of the CO2 emissions. Hence, as most population growth is occurring in the developing poor countries, the effect it's having on the ecological footprint is negligible compared to those in the developed countries. Therefore, it is our responsibility to lower the ecological footprint because we are the prime reason the Earth is not regenerating resources as fast as we are consuming them. The developed world may have the largest ecological footprint, however, it is everyone's responsibility to contribute to the lowering of the overall ecological footprint. Daunting as this information may seem, there are many ways to bring down the global ecological footprint in order to reduce its gap with the Earth's biocapacity, such as recycling, responsible land and water use, using cleaner modes of transportation, developing clean and efficient energy alternatives, and educating people about sustainability. Humanity has the creative potential to solve such problems, but we must realize that in order to achieve sustainability, we must undergo drastic, radical change. The change I'm referring to would be things such as our economic dependency on resources such as oil, which is finite. Oil is a precious commodity, and it is easy to overlook that the fact it is so prevalent in so many aspects of everyday life, from obvious uses such as fuel to operate machines, to oil-based pesticides used by farmers to maintain crops. Its uses are countless. The global economy is heavily dependent on it in that it provides many jobs and money for governments to spend on services. The existence of oil does have its benefits, but what happens when we run out? As it stands, the majority of technologies are fueled by oil. As reserves begin to diminish, we will be unable to develop new technologies that run on alternative fuel sources quickly enough to replace those powered by oil. Reliance on forms of energy such as nuclear power leaves us susceptible to meltdowns and hazardous waste. The economy of many developed countries such as Canada would falter due to its heavy reliance on oil as an export. The consequences are countless. Some might argue that the cost of reforming the world's economy would be too great, but one must also ask, is it more costly than living in a world where we run out of resources? Surely the advantages of reducing our dependency on oil outweigh such costs. Conflict over oil, such as that in the Middle East, would cease to exist. Risk of the effects of oil spills on the environment would be virtually non-existent. Lack of oil combustion would result in the reduction in hydrocarbon emissions, which would mitigate the effects of climate change and result in an overall healthier atmosphere. Yet the issue of sustainability and climate change seem to go hand in hand. It is true that the world's climate has undergone drastic change due to human influence. Major global surface temperature reconstructions show that the Earth has warmed since the 1880s, with the 10 warmest years occurring in the past 12 years, while surface temperatures continue to increase today. The oceans have absorbed most of this heat. Since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the oceans have increased 30% in acidity due to the absorption of carbon dioxide emissions. The amount of carbon dioxide absorbed by the upper layer of oceans is increasing by about 2 billion tons per year. What does this information mean, you ask? The consequences of climate change will be seen all around the world. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change forecasts a temperature rise of 2.5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit over the next century alone. Drastic change in climate will cause natural disasters such as floods, droughts, and storms occurring in all areas around the world. The increase in temperature as it is has caused major ice loss in areas such as Greenland, the Antarctic, and all around glacial withdrawal all over the world. Climate change will also cause a decreased access to fresh water experienced by all, especially those in developing nations. It is predicted by the year 2020 that between 75 and 250 million people will suffer from the effects of water stress in Africa alone. Lack of water will put severe strain on the agriculture and food production. Disease associated with lack of clean water and food will increase. Other consequences of climate change include a shift in ecosystems, such as the gradual replacement of tropical rainforest by savanna in eastern Amazonia. Also, significant risk in biodiversity, extensive species loss, the list goes on and on. This information paints a bleak picture of the future of our Earth, but the fact of the matter is, it is happening as we speak. We are exhausting our planet to the extent at which it is unable to replenish itself. However, change is possible. The first step is changing our attitude and reducing our rate of consumption and waste production. Responsibility of creating a sustainable future rests in the hands of every human being on Earth, and it is about time we realize the severity of the crisis we are dealing with and take action.